Good morning and good evening. In America, it is good morning, and in India, it is good evening. So, welcome to Educational TV Live, and welcome Talk with Abhijit. So, here in each and every conversation with our national or international educationist, we are presenting, and especially I am Abhijit, I'm presenting to you and giving you the detail about the international educationist, and we are presenting international forum to you. So today it will be a great opportunity for us because today, we have got one, educationist who is along with us. So it will be a huge benefit and it will be a huge thing for us. So today I'm introducing Dr. Mary E. FALTON. She's a native Hartford and North Carolina. She holds a PhD in education with a specialization in educational leadership from North Central University. So you're talking about we are always talking about leadership role in the adult role of the principals. So today, ma'am will presenting her thoughts about the presentation on the administration, especially the administration of the school level, because she has received her GED, or Dr. Felton later graduated from College of Alban with an associate in business administration. She later graduated with a bachelor degree in business administration with a concentration in management from Elizabeth City State University. So she's a member of a numerous honor society, including Golden Key International Honor Society, Alpha Chi Honor Society. So she was having 25 years of experience. She has an experience of almost 25 years, and she has started a journey as a substitute teacher. She has served in various capacities, including business teacher, assistant principal, and interim principal, and educational consultant. So today, I am presenting to you, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am, Mary FALTON. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome to you as well, and thank you for having me. It is a pleasure and indeed an honor. I'm grateful to have this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. It is also an honor for us because at last we have got the opportunity that you are here, and with your busy schedule, you are giving us the time. So, ma'am, before going to the presentation, just I want to make sure about one thing. Just I have one question before going for the presentation. Ma'am, what are the changes have you seen after the post-COVID educational system?
Well, I've definitely seen a lot of anxiety associated with learning. I've seen, many learning gaps revealed, because many times post COVID, because of the changes in the instructions. Of course, there was a time when the classroom instructions was not the norm, and technology was utilized in a way of distance learning. And there were some learners who were unable to grasp the concepts using technology. Some learners, as we know, they learn differently. Some learners are not familiar with the technology. They are unfamiliar with how to navigate Zoom, and Zoom was utilized as the platform in many situations. So because of the pandemic, I think the learning gap wide. There was already some issues and some concerns and some challenges associated with struggling learners. And so the pandemic did not help at all.
Absolutely, man. Because in India, we have faced these kind of challenges because you know about our social and social structure and economic structure. So within almost 2 years, most of the students, especially in the primary level and middle level, they have not got the education and they have forgotten, and so many problems they have been facing, and there's a huge gap. We have seen the huge gap especially in India. So have you seen such kind of a huge gap in your country also?
Well, you know, as we know, it's not only in India, and it's definitely not only in the United States. There is a learning gap. I mean, it has been documented for decades. The issue is, you know, identifying effective strategies to close the learning gap. And the learning gap is simply a knowledge gap. What is it that they're expected to know, and how do they perform? How do they demonstrate that learning? So we have to help them identify what it is they are expected to learn, understand where they are, and then provide effective learning strategies to help them grasp those concepts and to be able to demonstrate mastery. I personally think that effective learning strategy would definitely be the right approach, because we know learners, they learn differently. I often say there's no good or bad strategy. It's either effective or it's ineffective. And based on the data, it just appears that it's not that these learners don't have the ability to learn. I think that they are just using ineffective learning strategies.
Okay, ma'am. Absolutely, it is clear, because effective learning and effective teaching both are coming into the center stage. Okay, thank you, ma'am. So we are giving the presentation. So just I'm sharing the presentation to you, and ma'am, I'd like to ask, request you to have that presentation and to describe about the presentation. Yes, ma'am.
Can you pinch out for a larger view? So it's pretty small on my end.
Ma'am, we can start with the objectives. It is objective has been given.
Okay, so the purpose of this particular presentation is to help the viewers understand that there are different roles of learning styles, and to be able to differentiate between learning styles. Understand that different learners have different preferred learning styles, but it doesn't mean it's the most effective learning style. Understand study strategies for preferred learning styles, and understand the different levels of learning, because so many learners stop right at level 1, just memorizing, and then later on 2 or 3 months, because they did not really absorb that information and store that information in long-term memory, they are unable to retrieve and recall that information to apply it in a different setting. So we will definitely talk about the different levels of learning, and then we'll talk about select learning strategies, how to select learning strategies. Next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am. What are learning styles?
Yes. So learning styles is information enters into the brain 3 main ways: sight, hearing, and touch. And the one preferred and used by learners is called their learning style. So visual learners, they learn by sight. They like to see pictures. They like to see diagrams. Audio learners, they learn by hearing. They enjoy lectures. That works best for them. And tactile learners, which are known as kinesthetic learning, they learn by touch, hands-on activities, utilizing models as such. So as we can see, there are different learning opportunities, but I think understanding and identifying the different type of learning style that's most effective for the learner would benefit the learner. Next slide.
Next, ma'am, visual learners.
Yes. Visual learners prefer to see information such as I said, pictures and diagrams and cartoons and demonstration. Take, for example, if a learner watches a short video with movies and integrating pictures and diagrams, most likely they are going to be able to recall that information. So those picture words and concepts and hear images, easily distracted in lecture with no visual aid. You'll find them just kind of wandering off. So they benefit from using charts and maps and notes and flashcards when they're studying.
Ma'am, next is auditory learners.
Auditory learners prefer to hear information spoken. so they can listen to lectures and they can absorb that lecture with little effort. They might not need careful notes to learn. Often eye contact, they avoid that because they're concentrating. Sometimes they read out loud, many times they read out loud to themselves, and sometimes they like background music when they study.
Ma'am, next is tactile and kinesthetic learners.
Tactile and kinesthetic learners, they prefer to touch as a primary mode for taking in information. In traditional lecture situations, they should write out important facts. They can create study sheets associated with their vivid examples. So they connect those examples with the study sheets. They role play, that can help them learn and remember important ideas. And they may benefit from using manipulatives, such as models. So this
levels of learning, ma'am.
And this is very important, levels of learning, because what I find is many people are not familiar with the different levels of learning. So as we see, remember, recalling and remembering facts, that's level 1. But as you can see, understanding is level 2. They need to understand what the facts are. They need to be able to explain it in their own words. As we move to a level 3, applying, they need to be able to apply the facts, rules, and concepts, as well as ideas to different situations, to new situations. For example, if you walk into the store, if this is an exercise, if a student is tasked with, okay, we're going to walk into the clothing store, there is an outfit for $100, they have 25% discount, how much would they be expected to pay minus taxes? So they would have to know that 75% of $100, they would have to understand how to first subtract the 25%, which is $25 from that $100, to understand that $75 is the amount plus tax. That's application. So they would need to be able to apply facts, rules, and concepts. That's level 3. Then level 4, analyze, breaking down information into components and different parts. We have level 5, evaluate, judging the value of information or ideas. As you can see, this is a long ways from just simply remembering and recalling dates and facts. And then create, combining parts to make a new whole, to produce something that's new. So these are the different levels of learning. But what I find is many times learners get stuck at remembering, and that's not the level that they need to be performing on. Level 1 is definitely important, but they definitely need to be able to apply, analyze, evaluate, and create.
Absolutely, ma'am, because just I'm giving the inputs because in 2020, India government, they have introduced NEP, National Education Policy. So before that, we have preferred about the rote learning, memorizing things. So from the memorizing things and from the rote learning, we are coming to the creative things. And creation is very important. Creativity, that is means create the activity, not the, repeat the activities. So we need to create, we need to analyze, we need to apply, and application is very important because whether suppose I am the teacher of language and literature. So if I have taught someone about the any character, so what is the application of the character in the real life? So we have to apply those characters in the real life. So very important, whatever ma'am has told about that, yes, levels of learning, that is very important, this level of learning. Thank you, ma'am. Next slide, ma'am. Did you know?
So do you know while high school tasks may ask you to remember and understand information, often college tasks expect you to understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So as you can see, the higher the learning, the more learners are expected to do. And now even with the innovation, even in middle school or lower level learning, they are expected to apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Think about a science project. They are expected to create a project at the end of that task. So that's just multiple levels of learning. And so as we can see, learning on multiple levels and, the different tasks that they will be expected to complete. And so just looking at Bloom's taxonomy, are you familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am. We know about the Bloom taxonomy.
Okay, wonderful. So as you can see, the tasks are different at each level. And remembering they may be asked to describe, tell, or find, but understanding at that level, they will be expected to discuss, explain, predict. So as you can see, the tasks are different associated with the level of learning that they are expected to perform. So even with applying, they're expected to use and illustrate and solve problems. You solve problems at that level. Analyzing, they identify, compare, categorize, evaluate, they decide, they rate, they justify. Creating, they create, they design, they plan. So as you can see, the different levels of learning, it's critical that the learners understand at what level they are performing.
Absolutely. I mean, Bloom's taxonomy, from the remembering to creating and creation, the main thing will be the creation. Whatever because we are just coming out from the remembering or the rote learning. Okay, ma'am, for the next slide, ma'am, there is a Bloom taxonomy.
So that's similar to the previous one, just further explaining that, at that level, as you just said, with remembering, they're simply recalling basic facts, but when they're understanding, they can explain these ideas or concepts. When they apply the information, the knowledge, they can use that information in a new situation. And this is where many learners are stuck, because they've only memorized with rote learning, because they don't understand the 6 levels of learning. When they are tasked with using that information in a new situation, they become stressed, they become frustrated, because the only thing they have done is recall facts. And that definitely will not allow them to use that information in a new situation. And if you're asking them to analyze, you're asking them to draw connections between and among ideas. If you're asking them to evaluate, you're asking them to justify a stand or a decision. They definitely will be able, they would have to be able to explain their own ideas and concepts to be able to justify. And if you look at producing new original work, that's where we need these learners to be able to design. And, we're in this innovation stage. So as we can see, this is critical for educators across the world to understand. We must help them move beyond rote learning.
Absolutely. And just I'm giving you one example about Albert Einstein. During the childhood level of Albert Einstein, he has been given that you should memorize those words in the history. So Albert Einstein was frustrated, and Albert Einstein was said that how and why I can remember, I can memorize those only those dates and years. So if you wanted to memorize those facts and explain those facts, analyzing those facts, and evaluate those facts and connect with the real life, then it will be a huge benefit for the students also. Yeah, absolutely, ma'am. Next slide, ma'am.
So the previous graphic was released by Vanderbilt University for teaching. And so I often, just make sure everyone knows that that's where that graphic came from, because I'm using it for educational purposes. So this is an activity that the educators can ask their learners, think about their favorite class, You know, ask them, what do they have in common? What do they like? How do they master facts? Do they enjoy mastering facts discussion or working on their own? Do they enjoy the lecture or pairing or grouping? Or do they enjoy hands-on activities? So this is a list of questions your educators can ask their learners to kind of probe and help the learners learn how they learn. So I will send you, you can go out and research discovering the learning style. You know, I would encourage you to have the learners to take a learning style inventory so that they will be able to identify their learning style. I think it's important for them to understand. Okay, because the learning style inventory strategies, it lists behaviors that should exhibit in order to excel in the different courses. So you can kind of go to the next one, because with this one you would have an activity, and you could ask the students, if they do these things, do they always preview the materials that will be discussed before they go to class? Number 2, do they go over their lecture notes as soon as possible after the lecture, rework them and note problems? So do they go over the lecture notes as soon as possible after the lecture? Do they rework them and note problems? These are strategies that the learner should be doing. But as I said, many times learners, they are not utilizing effective strategies. You know, they should preview the material that will be discussed before they go to class. Next. They should try to work homework problems or answer the questions without looking at the example problems or notes from their class or the textbook. So these are questions that should be posed by the educator to their learners. They should go, you know, do they go to office hours or tutoring regularly to discuss problems or questions on the homework? So as I said, these are lists of questions that your educators can pose to the students to help them understand what they should be doing. Next. Do they rework all the homework problems and questions before the test or a quiz? Do they spend time studying for the class at least 5 days per week outside of class time? Because we know learning is definitely beyond just what, you know, it doesn't end in class, in the classroom. And sometimes these learners, they need help and support at home as well. So I just wanted to make that comment. Next. Do they make mnemonic for themselves to help them remember facts and equations? For example, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you know, the order of operation in math. Have you heard of that one? The mnemonics, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, these are just different ways and different questions that the educators can ask the question. They should make diagrams or draw mental pictures of the concepts discussed in class. But these are questions that each learner should be asked. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And also I'm adding to this because now our government, our Indian government has introduced art integrated learning. Whatever the syllabus or whatever the subjects are there should be an art integration. Like you have told about the diagrams, mental pictures, and other things. So how art should be integrated in each and every time when the teachers will be entering and giving the lectures or teaching the students. Okay, ma'am. Next.
They can also realize that they can do well in a class even if they've done poorly on quizzes and tests up to this point, because they can utilize effective learning strategies and they can definitely do well despite the fact maybe they've done poorly on quizzes and tests previously. So that would be, they could predict their grade based on the previous activity that we just talked about. So these are some strategies. So if you see, these are some strategies. You asked about post-COVID and how can we help our learners? If they identify that they are a visual learner, they can use visual materials such as picture charts, maps and graphs. They can have a clear view of the teacher. They should have a clear view of the teacher. Use colors to highlight important points in a text. I find this is very, very helpful. All of these are helpful for visual learners, and they can write a story to illustrate what they've read. They can study in a quiet place away from verbal disturbances. Visualize information as pictures, as a picture to aid in their memorization. So that's just a few for visual learners, because we will have different strategies for visual learners than we would audio learners or kinesthetic learners. Next. So your audio learners, these are some strategies. They can participate in class discussions or debates. They can make speeches and presentations. They can even use a tape recorder during lectures instead of taking notes. Read text out loud. And I'm sure you've utilized some of these being an educator yourself. They can create mnemonics to aid with memorization, discuss their ideas verbally, dictate to someone while they write down thoughts. They can use verbal analogies and storytelling to demonstrate the points of view. So as you can see, the strategies are different depending upon the learning style. For tactile kinesthetic learners, they can take frequent study breaks. They can move around to learn new things, read while on exercise and bikes. They can kind of rehearse. They can work at a standing position. Sometimes they like to move around, stand up. They can use bright colors to highlight reading materials. If they wish, they can listen to music while they study. They can skim through the reading material and get a rough idea what is it about before settling down to read it. So, and they can use models, because these hands-on learners, demonstrations, project, creating products, manipulatives help them as well.
Absolutely, ma'am. And just I want to share the ideas of Rabindranath Tagore, Nobel laureates Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore here in West Bengal have started the school. He had started the school, and I mean, it is not confined with the kind of only the classroom. The classroom can be the nature. So he wanted to take the students to the outside of the classroom, and he used to sit, and the students used to sit underneath the trees, and they are connecting with the nature. So absolutely, whatever you have told and explained, just we can connect with those things also. Thank you, ma'am. And it will be the last one.
Project-based learning is definitely great. So this is going to be the end slide, and then we can continue, because I would like to talk about the learning journal and how that will help the learners. But proper preparation prevents poor performance. Those are the 5 P's that I often say, because using effective strategies will allow them to soar. So they must properly prepare. It's not that they don't have the ability to learn. Sometimes they're just utilizing ineffective strategies. So proper preparation prevents poor performance. Help them use effective strategies so that they can soar. And that's the end of that presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just I want to ask you the last question before you have shown your, you've shown your book, ma'am. From now on, I mean, situation is getting normal. Yes, it is getting normal. So from now on, within 1 year, where we can go, whatever the failures we have had, I mean, during the time of the COVID situation, whatever the problems the students have faced, do you think that it can be made up? It can be made up in near future. Those students, suppose 7, 8 years old, so they have lost their 2 years, almost 2 years, education in 2 years. How they can make up, and how the strategy from the point of view as a teacher, how we can support the students? Please just give one idea from you. I want to know the idea from you, ma'am.
Well, first of all, of course, these learners, these students, they can master those concepts. first of all, we have the standards, we have what they're expected to learn. As I just mentioned, different learning styles, different learning strategies. Number one, what we must understand, they must know what they know and know what they don't know. So therefore, we need to ensure that we pre-assess them. We need to help them. We need to first take shame away from the classroom. It should not be stressful to learn. They should understand that a pre-assessment is identifying what they know to create a baseline. Once you know what they know, you know what they do not know. That's the gap, the learning gap, the knowledge gap. And then we identify those tasks that will help them develop the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we say they need to master to demonstrate proficiency. So it is an educator's responsibility to help the learners know what they don't know and then provide them strategies to help them demonstrate those masteries. So, there are different research learning strategies. As I've often said, and I did talk about many of them, but, retrieval practice. Put away the materials and just see what you can remember, because the more you recall, the more that information will stick. But to answer your question, of course, but we have to use effective learning strategies. And that's one reason why I developed the learning journal. And it's a simple journal. And every day they answer 3 questions. And those 3 questions are, what is the easiest topic, concept, or subject I learned today and why? What was most challenging to learn and why? What strategies were helpful and words to learn? Because we know vocabulary is very important, and we must develop the academic vocabulary so that they will be able to read and comprehend. And many times they lack the background knowledge. And so you can use a simple 5-minute video to help them become familiar with the background prior to teaching them a concept that they're unfamiliar with. So we have many tools. We have technology at our fingertips. It's free. So as an educator, what I would highly recommend, a learning journal. This will help them monitor their progress. Also utilize free and appropriate technology. For example, videos. Have you heard of Khan Academy? Do you all use Khan Academy there?
No, ma'am. Please explain that, ma'am.
Okay, well, so Khan Academy has very short videos. It's free, first of all. I'll send you a link. And the students can register and they can select videos on different concepts. There are quizzes. It's just, we don't have enough time for me to explain it. I can come back and actually talk to you about free resources. We can take about 30 minutes and I can provide you several free online appropriate resources that are utilized here in the United States to help our learners demonstrate success. I will be happy to do that.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Are you familiar with Quizlet? Are you familiar with Quizlet?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with dictionary.com?
Yes. I am familiar with the dictionary.com.
Okay, so as you see, there are multiple free online appropriate learning resources. And so I would welcome an opportunity to come back to, just discuss how you can utilize those technology tools to increase the proficiency there.
I think, ma'am, there should be another session should be with you, that you should show the students, especially the students and the educator, how to use the technology. Because most of the students, and now it is getting a challenge for, as an educator, I feel that it is a challenge for us, because we need to shift from one technology or one type of teaching methodology has been changed. Over the 2 years, we have seen the technology has been changed, and we have to adapt the situation. If we don't adapt to the situation, we don't give the importance to the situation, then the students could not learn. So it is a challenging job. I mean, as an educator, I feel that it is a more challenging job, and it is getting more challenging as the days goes on. It is getting more challenging.
Well, technology is a tool, and it's a tool to help the learner demonstrate mastery. You take, for example, a calculator is a tool for an accountant. A hammer and a measuring tape is a tool for a carpenter. So technology is a tool. And so you must choose the appropriate tool depending on the task that the student is expected to master. So I would be happy to come back and talk about the different types of tools that we can utilize to help those students, master these concepts. But we must,
Absolutely, there should be another session with you, ma'am.
excuse me?
There should be another session with you, because I mean, today's session excellent, wonderful, and I also suggest all the educationists, the fraternity of the educationists, you can send us your question, so you can all take up those questions, and we can discuss with ma'am in our next session. And if some of the educators will be there, so you can talk to them, you can ask, or you can take their questions, so it will be a direct connection between the educators and with you. So we are expecting that there should be another program with you. Thank you, ma'am. And we are just at the last end, so before leaving, please give your inputs about the coming year, how the education will be changed.
Well, as I said, learning is different for each learner, but I think utilizing technology, understanding the different learning styles, taking shame away from the classroom is so important. It should be a safe learning environment. And, I say, think of the acronym SAFE. Select the appropriate learning strategies, align them with the tasks, facilitate the learning, and then evaluate, and then continue on. But we must take shame away from the classroom. A student should not be ashamed to raise their hand, to ask questions. And I think that is a big problem that's hindering our learners across the world. Self-efficacy. Are you familiar with self-efficacy? And
No, ma'am.
self-efficacy, a psychiatrist, Bondur, he termed that as the learner's ability to believe in their ability to master a concept or a task at a certain level. And if a learner has low self-efficacy, they will normally avoid challenges. And they will be very apprehensive. So we must build self-efficacy. We must build their belief in their ability to demonstrate mastery. Because many of them would just shut down. And I would love to come back and talk about ways that we could help these. You all may see it as low self-esteem, but it could just be low self-efficacy, because repeated failure can cause low self-efficacy, and they will be afraid to try because they will be paralyzed by failure. And I think that's a large problem as well. So if you don't see engagement, or you see students just sitting there and refusing to try because the repeated failure that's their way of coping, and they're trying to protect themselves by not trying. So have you seen that in the classroom where some students just refuse to complete the task? Have you seen
Yes, some
that?
students are there. Yes, ma'am.
And those are struggling students, and they refuse to complete the task?
Absolutely, there are so many students are there, because it's a cosmopolitan area, and India is a cosmopolitan area. So many students are there. Yes, absolutely, ma'am.
Well, and that's because what you need to do is create opportunities for them to experience success. Because as I said, many times when they repeatedly experience failure, they will be apprehensive, and they will not be engaged. They will not ask questions. And many times they will not complete the homework because they are afraid of failure. So that's the way that they have, it's a coping strategy for them. If I don't do it, then I don't fail. So we can talk about self-efficacy as well. I did send you the link to my journal on Amazon.com. So it would be great for you to share that, because the learning journal allows the learners as well as the educators to monitor the progress. Have you ever heard of metacognition skills?
Yes.
How to learn? Well, that's what this learning journal does for the learner. They become familiar with how they learn. They become familiar with the different learning strategies. If a strategy is not effective, then they will understand that they need to change their approach. Because if you use a strategy and it's ineffective, the outcome will not be your desired outcome. And I think that's a missing piece of the puzzle in the educational section. We're not focusing on learning strategies. We're not focusing on learning journals, and we must do that. I myself struggled education as a child. I even repeated the fourth grade, but by the age of 17, I took and passed 5 tests all in the same day. And I don't say that to brag or boast. The reason I say that is I stumbled across effective learning strategies, and it helped me excel. And so I've been able to go from a GED to a PhD. I have graduated from 5 different colleges, and I've done that from using effective learning strategies. And that was one of the reasons I developed this learning journal, because that's something that I wish I had as a child when I was struggling. I was raised in poverty. My grandmother was very poor. Sometimes we didn't even have food to eat. We were very poor. So poverty does not dictate performance, but preparation does. So if they are prepared adequately, if they have a learning journal, if they are monitoring their learning strategies, if they are monitoring their progress, if they are provided a safe learning opportunity, then yes, they can excel. You asked the question, because of the pandemic and some of them losing some learning time, can they excel? Yes, they can, with the proper preparation and the appropriate resources. So that's the answer to that question. Yes,
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you. With a seriously, with this hope, we are concluding today's a great interview with you, because there is a hope. You have given us the hope, because learning should be there. We need to prepare for that. If
yes.
we are poor, if we are what is stricken, the preparation should not be mind with should not be communicated with this kind of a preparation. Preparation is a separate thing, and poverty is the separate thing. So that will be the bottom line. That should be the bottom line of today's interview. And thank you, ma'am, giving us the time. And on behalf of Abhijit, talking with Abhijit, on behalf of Educational TV, I really very grateful to you, and I'll have you in the next time with so many educators will be with you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I look forward to returning.
Thank you, ma'am.
Share my learning journal, the link to the learning journal.
Absolutely. Please read this learning journal, whatever ma'am has shown us. And yes, today I am going to conclude. And thank you, everyone.
It's available on Amazon.com. It's available on Amazon.com. So maybe
it is available on Amazon.com. If there will be any problem, Educational TV will be sharing that Amazon.com link also, so you can purchase the book and give us the idea. So next time, if when ma'am will be coming, when ma'am will be live, so you'll get so many ideas. We can talk about so many ideas about the educational ideas. So thank you, ma'am. On behalf of Educational TV and Abhijit, thank you very much.
Thank you,
ma'am.